Good morning. Um, Really glad to get to post with you. It's a little early morning, so the lighting's off really badly, or the lighting's bad. Anyways, I wanted to respond to a number of themes that I'm seeing in our posts for this week, especially as we're talking about hindrances for both ourselves and for our congregations. Let me say again that there is a small difference between change and challenge. It's only 3 letters. Go look that one up. So 3 letter difference between change and challenge. So anytime we try to implement any kind of change, we're going to see a challenge. And in my conflict course, yes, this is a commercial sort of. In the conflict course that starts this next week, I'll be talking about, you will hear me say if you're in that class that. Um, if you are not seeing conflict, you're either in denial or you're not doing anything. So every time we do something, there are going to be people who don't like it, maybe just a little, but maybe a lot. Again, just know that that goes with the territory. There's no such thing as smooth sailing. Um, routines, as you know, are extremely hard to break. Anytime we find ourselves in any kind of a situation, a new situation, or the like, what we'll find ourselves doing is falling back on the routine, what we've done in the past. We have to be careful about not moving too quickly. We have to be cautious, but not overly cautious. Start small. One of the I don't know, sins perhaps of change, transition that I have surely been guilty of in the past is to read and to take classes or go to a workshop or a seminar and learn all of these really cool things that I want to implement just as soon as I get back. But the problem is, not everything I learned fits my situation or my setting, and not everything is as it's not the time for everything. A number of years ago, golly, now easily 20 years ago, yes, 20 years ago, Willow Creek was then the up and come, church. It was the church for going to see that was doing some really incredible stuff that started small with some youth or young adults in a movie theater there in Chicago suburbs, and it grew. At that point, it was the largest church in the country, and everybody was flocking to see it and to learn from them. And the Willow Creek Association started out of that, and everybody wanted to do what Willow Creek was doing. And I was some of those who spent a good bit of money in the bookstore there buying videos and video lessons and the like to use video units, curricula to go back and use in my setting. But the problem was my setting only had 100 people in it, while their setting had thousands of people. What was working there for thousands of people or even hundreds of people wasn't going to work in my setting. So we have to take what we can use and be discerning about that. You'll hear that word from me probably in a few more moments, that word discerning. We do have to be cautious, but not overly cautious. We have to get clarity, to really pray, to slow down, not to look at something in its piece, but it's in its totality. How is this curriculum? How is this lesson? How is this message, this sermon, this technique going to fit into the larger program of what we're trying to accomplish? And friends, we just don't think like that. We're not trained to think like that. We're doing this. We're trying to get from here to there, to this, from this stop to the next stop, to grow our church, to grow our budget, to grow people. But it takes all of that together. And the problem is, or one of the problems is, we've been siloed, so siloed out that that's next to impossible to move past. So just some more for you. Let's talk about being careful about what we do or we don't do. I have this Norfolk Island pine. Actually, I have 2 of them. And one I've had for probably about 4 years. The other one I've had since last Christmas. And I'll tell you, that one I've had since last Christmas, it's in a precarious position. I'm not quite sure whether it's going to live or it's not going to make it. But that's how I was feeling about my other Norfolk Island pine that just took off in this past year and is doing her own thing. One of the pieces I learned about that first one, and now I'm dealing with this one, is if it's not looking really good, it could be because you've been watering it too much, or it could be because you're not watering it enough. Well, it looks the same, and I'm still trying to figure out, am I watering it too much? Am I watering it not enough? And so I'm having to go bit by bit and monitoring it every couple of days. Does it need more water? Do I need to stop giving it more water? You know, and I'm glad she's not hanging by a thread at the moment, but and I think she's going to make it, but I'm basing that on my fallback of what's happened with my other Norfolk Island pine, and I can only look at this one. This is the one that I have to consider in all of this. Words for you as well. Fear. In the 12 steps, there are a number of acronyms, and one of them is for fear. I thought that I would share these with you. And how about fear? False evidence appearing real. Fear, false expectations appearing real. I think I like that one better. False expectations appearing real. Fear, fighting ego against reality. Fear, frantic effort to appear real. I'm guilty of that one too. Fear, forget everything and run. run, save yourself. How about this? Fear, failure expected and received. I like this one. This is my next favorite. Fear, few ever arrive rejoicing. And fear, fear expressed allows relief. We have to have those mentors, those coaches that we can talk to and talk about our fears, who will help us analyze and walk through our fears. And you know what? It's okay to say, though, with confidence in what you're doing, you know, I'm afraid about this too. But I know that what we're doing isn't working. We can admit our fear in there, but we've got to get that but in when we're working with our people. Not so much with our mentors or our coaches. Be cautious, be aware, not necessarily wary, right? Look at what your wariness is about, but be aware and take care of yourself, or you're going to become weary. How about that for some words? Those folks who say, well, we've always done it that way, or we've never done it that way, well, again, there it is. But obviously, whatever we're doing or we haven't been doing isn't working. Also, it's helpful to point out, if it's true in your congregation, as it is to most, that many of the current members' children aren't in church any longer. I found that to be a helpful tool many, many years ago, when I had people that were just ranting against some things that we were trying, including this moving people from being pre-Christian through disciples. We doubled the congregation at that point. We were then worshiping just over 200, and the people that were complaining, their children had left church years and years before. And so when they said to me, you know, we've never done it that way, this is the way we've always done it, and I just said, how many of your children are still in church? Well, mine moved away. Or do they go to church where they are? How about your grandchildren? Are they in church? Are they in Sunday school? And I will tell you, I find that 8 out of 10 times the answer to that is no. And I just say, you know, with all due respect, what you've been doing didn't work, and it drove them away. Are you ready to try a different way? One that might be better. When it comes to having people to work with you, one of the big problems is that we've spent most of our time mostly growing Christians who don't have a discipling mind or ethos. right? If we have not had a discipling ethos, we don't have discipling people. And so we start one by one. Don't have the people in our congregation, you've got at least one. If you don't, that's where you go, run, save yourself, all right? I just said this 2 days ago. I live with the scripture, pearls before swine. Don't cast your pearls before swine. Don't waste your giftings unless God is calling you to clearly to be where you are and it's stifling you. Then you're going to be a martyr and you will die. Make sure you're a martyr. Make sure God is calling you to be a martyr. And then you be the best damn martyr you can be. Otherwise, run, save your life, be a good steward, and place your pearls, God's pearls, these beautiful gifts and giftings that God has given you to churches, to congregations, to people that will welcome and use them. Or you'll die. You'll die. And if you're about to tell me, but the church will die if I leave, just remember you are not Jesus. And they've been on a slow path to death for a long, long time. It's okay. Can't save them. Only Jesus can. And if they're not following Jesus, if they're not into Jesus, they have no hope anyways. Whatever you do, anytime you try to implement something, and this really is the reason for the focus of our final paper, have a plan, make a plan, be intentional, have a process. That process is in your plan. Be processual. Don't just jump into something and do it. How does it fit the bigger picture? And what process will you use to implement it? Go slowly. Follow your plan. If you're not processual, find a colleague who is, or call me. Okay, please don't do this out there on your own. And as one of you really pointed out, remember, leadership, leadership, leadership. It's your leadership. Build the strength of your leadership and surround yourself with the right leaders. Mentors should be leaders in other places, right? And then the people that you surround yourself, be careful. Just because someone is a leader in the community does not make them suitable to be a leader in the church. Look for a discipler. Look for somebody who gets it, whose eyes light up, but who also has leadership capacity and capabilities. How about that? Be careful and be discerning. Don't move too quickly to get somebody in the right place. It's not about position, it's about the right person. That's the key to fractals. Start with one person, one fractal, one person. And you need somebody whose eyes light up and who have the capability to gather others. Okay? I want to put a caution out there about community Bible school and youth programs. This sounds like a good idea. It resolves a number of issues, but as distasteful as this is about to sound, and I know this, it is not good PR or good church growth. It is a PR church growth faux pas. When you get 2 or 3 churches coming together, people will come around that that program, but they'll also go to whichever church the program is being held in. Now you may say, but it doesn't matter what church they go to, because we've got them coming. It doesn't matter if they don't go to any of the church. Well, I could go with you on that one too. A lot of extent, okay? Some of us have larger Wednesday evening programs or midweek programs, and we do Sunday morning programs, and I'm there. I think that's awesome, and I'm way okay with that. But you need to know that people complain about that because the way that we're using our resources isn't feeding back into the Sunday butts in seats, right? They're not contributing to our budget. Right? They're not in our building. So keep that in mind. The other piece is the way we work programs is both to reach and to grow people, but the bottom line is we're trying to get them into our congregation, into our church where we can nurture them. And if the program is not being held in your church, then they will go to the church where it is. Okay, so keep that in mind. A thought, if you're trying to get to critical mass, may be to go to a larger church and ask them to lend you some people. I found that works. Um, so critical mass is important. People walk into the church, they need to see that, see your sanctuary at least 50%. Better yet is 60% full. Yes, at 80%, it's crowded. So you have this 60 to 80% wiggle room. But the reality is, to get to growing, you've got to get to that 60% capacity. You want the people in your church. So think about getting a local church. Maybe one a little bit down the road, who has a mission mind, who shares some of your same ethos, if they can lend you people for 6 months to a year. See how that goes. It's great for getting a leader or two as well. Okay, evaluations. I think about church self-esteem. We talk about self-esteem. I hear church esteem. A lot of us who've had huge declines are dealing with low self-esteem in our churches, and that's a whole other conversation to have. So know that again. We'll pick up on that in the conflict course. And my last word for you this morning. I really, as you probably know, keep thinking about the whole pagan piece and evangelism, and how the people, there were 31 people the other night in a witchcraft course, and this weekend there will be 37 there at the bookshop for the high priest of the Temple of Witchcraft from up there in New England. Christopher Penczak will be here, tonight and Saturday, tomorrow, and Sunday for these classes. And there are 37 who are giving up their weekend, 9 until 6, both days, to learn from him about ascension magic. I don't even know what that means, but I know I'll be down there holding down the shop and praying the whole time. Anyways, I tell you this because it hit me yesterday that those who have been Christians and think that through witchcraft they can manipulate things and make things a reality. J.B. Phillips has this book he wrote years and years ago, decades ago, called Your God is Too Small. And I realized what we teach in the church and share in the church is a God who's too small. And there's this song, My God is Mighty to Save. And I just love that. God is mighty, not just almighty. He is mighty and mighty to save. My God can do anything, and I know yours too. And that's the God who's with us, who is supporting us, who's undergirding all of this. If he's the one who's undergirding your work, then he will take your work to where he needs it to be. Remember, if you can do what you have planned, it is not a Moses vision. It is not. Moses' vision was so small, and God gave him the greater vision. But Moses, like, how can you? I can't even say that stuff. And you want me to pick up some rod? You want me to go to Moses or to Pharaoh? That's nice. You want Aaron to come with me? You want me to say what? But God can do it. So if you can enact, if you can implement, if you can pull off your plan, guess what? It is not God's plan. It is not a Moses vision. Don't make your God so small. Start teaching about our God, who is an awesome God, and let people see your eyes light up. Show them what he's doing in your congregation, in your community. Tell them what is possible. I have to go, but in my one of my first classes, I think it was, I don't even know what class it was, in seminary. They talked about Fred Craddock. Many of you disciples, at least, have heard about him. He is deceased now, but used to be one of our top, like, he was amongst the top 10 preachers in the country. And in a class, a New Testament class, one morning, he said, "What good news do you have to share this morning?" It was a Monday morning, or Tuesday morning. What went on this weekend that you want to share? And nobody raised their hand. He went over to the lights and he turned them off and he said, "Class dismissed." And people started to move. What? And he said, "If you don't have any good news to share, then you've got nothing to preach about." And he left and he called class for the day. So I'll say, if you don't have good news to share, if you don't have witness, if you don't have testimony, if you're preaching off of what somebody else is saying and telling you, then don't preach. Please stop right now. Share the good news that you see. Proclaim the God that you know. And if you don't know him yet, you don't know him in those ways, email me, because we need to have a conversation and I can show you some realities. All right, my friends, I have to let you go. It's off to the rest of the day. You have a wonderful one. Bye-bye.